So hi everyone. So in this lecture, we will start doing the growth theories. So we have earlier discussed, like in development theories, there are three broad segments in growth and development. So first, we have already completed the economic development, which have some basic concepts. Then we discussed all the economic development theories. Now in this lecture, we will start doing all the growth theory. So again, like what we have done in development theory, we basically seen what is the common point which are being, you can say, used in every development theory. So there was the broad segment was like all the economists were trying to figure out what are the problems of economic development, like which are the obstacles in development in those lower developing economy. Okay, and then they try to solve, or you can say they are providing some sort of solution so that those lower developing economies can regain the path of development. So similarly, growth theory is again this is much related to developed economy. So in this particular, you can say growth theory, we will see how to prosper. So first, I will give you a broad idea which are the main proponents, or you can say which are the main growth theorists. So first, what was the need? Like why growth theory as a separate study? Growth theory as a separate study. So the answer is basically, so we have already done Keynes theory in macroeconomics, but in Keynes, what we are basically trying to understand, like if there is some sort of AD is equal to A's Walla equilibrium, and some sort of thing is saving is equal to investment. So these two equilibrium was in a static sense. Static, it means we were trying to figure out this equilibrium at a particular point of time. But if we have to figure out the dynamic portion of this particular equilibrium, what is it key dynamic equilibrium? Dynamic means we will achieve this sort of equilibrium, that is demand is equal to supply or saving is equal to investment. So we will achieve this equilibrium, but it will be achieved in long run. So in order to achieve this, all the growth theorists gave their own mechanism, or you can say the transition path, or you can say a period of time, like dynamic. If we will discuss the dynamic explanation to this equilibrium, we called it a period of time. Okay, so and this sort of thing is for a point of time. And this was already, you can say, given by Keynes. But this dynamic portion, or you can say dynamic equilibrium path, was being given by what we will study in this growth theory, also called as modern growth theory. Modern growth theory. So modern growth theory is majorly divided into, you can say, four branches. First is Harrod Domar. Second is Solo Swan, also called as neoclassical. Third is Cambridge economics. So it basically contains, first it starts with Calder. Then we will go on for, I think first is Robinson. Then we will go to Calder, then Fascinity. Then last one is endogenous growth theory. The three main economists to this particular branch were Harrod, Domar, Lucas. So the main idea behind why I am giving you a holistic picture to this growth theory it will give you an idea ki how this lecture will follow. So we will start with Harrod Domar, then we will discuss on solo model, then we will see how Cambridge gave their economic growth theory, then last we will see about endogenous growth theory. Okay. So we will do all these things one by one. But one thing which I want to make you clear that what was the common point in development theory? So we were basically discussing about problems of development. Then what are the solutions to those problems? Then one more thing which was very common was the stationary state concept. So in growth theory, we will similarly find the common point. And the common point is also called as steady state equilibrium, or this is also called as long run equilibrium, or it is also called as balanced growth path. So this will be covered in all the lectures. So if you will ask me about Harrod Domar in solo, in Cambridge, and in endogenous, the one thing is very common is that we are trying to figure out that long run balanced growth path, or that is also called as steady state equilibrium. So let's discuss in a bit detailed way and what is the concept for this steady state. So like major variables which these growth models will be you can say covering. So major variables are, first we have output, then population, then we have capital stock, then we have savings, then we have investment, and then we have technical progress. So these are the variables which are being used by different growth economists in order to figure out, like you will ultimately get to know that these variables are either growing at constant rate or they are constant. Means output growth will be constant, or you can say output ka value will be constant. So in growth theory, ultimately this will be the result. Like whether you will study Harrod, whether you will study Solo Swan. So whichever the growth theory is there, the one conclusion remains same. Ki ultimately they will look upon ki whether these variables are growing at a constant rate or not. So the main agenda is to figure out, or you can say to conclude about this particular concept. And this is also called as full employment equilibrium. And this full employment equilibrium is also sometimes called as savings is equal to investment. And the second one is aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. So this particular conclusion gives you a better idea. Let's recall ki when we were studying, like if you are studying the Keynes theory, there also you are concluding ki saving must be equal to investment and aggregate demand must be equal to aggregate supply. But the main difference which I have also explained you in this lecture itself, Keynes gave a static approach, but in modern growth theory, you will see a dynamic approach to this particular equilibrium. Like if savings and investment got some deviation, like if there is a case where saving is in excess to investment, then what will happen? Or in either case, like if investment is greater than savings, then how this equilibrium will get attained? So in transition path, or you can say in the way to achieve that balanced growth state, or you can say steady state situation, we will see how different growth theorists have given their mechanism to achieve this particular steady state. Okay, so I think this thing is clear to everyone. So I have given you a broader picture key what we will see in each of the, you can say, growth theory, which we will be discussing in a bit. Okay, so now we will start with Harrod Domar model. And one more thing, which I just want to give you a picture about this. See, if you are like, you can say you are studying a particular model, like if you are discussing Harrod Domar. So three main, you can say, branches for a particular model means if you are studying any model, these three things will be there. First is assumption. Second is the model itself. And the third one is critical appraisal. Critical appraisal. Okay. So any theory will have these three components. So I will give you a way, or you can say I will give you a method which will help you to memorize these particular models in a better way and in a efficient way. How? So if some assumption of Harrod Domar is there, then if you will contrast, or you can say if you will counter attack that assumption, then it will give you the critical appraisal of the model. Okay. And if you are having the idea of critical appraisal of the model, then you will get you have already got the assumption of the next model. So next model is solo swan. Solo swan. So you got it. Like if you have the idea कि assumption पता है आपको Harrod Domar का, then if you are doing some sort of critical appraisal of the model, or you can say limitation or weaknesses of the model, this is also called limitation or weakness of the model. So you are just contrasting all those assumptions, or you can say you are just checking whether assumptions are followed or not. So if it is not followed, then you must use those assumptions in the next theory. Like that will be the assumption of the next theory. How? So if you, like you all know कि Harrod has this fixed proportion वाला assumption कि K by L जो capital output का ratio है, that will be constant. So this was criticized. And then Solo used that criticism as their assumption that capital and labor will be substitutable. So why I am giving you this particular approach? The reason is there is a huge number of model. Like in development itself, you have got to know that there was around 15 to 16 models. In growth, you will see 7 to 8 models. So it is hard to remember all the model. So you have to develop a particular approach. So I have given you this approach. Like if you are studying, so two things you have to be remember कि अगर आपको, like if you are remembering assumption of one model, then you will be able to create this particular chain. Okay. And then again यहाँ से फिर हम model आया, फिर then we will get the critical appraisal. Then again this will become the assumption for the next one. So try to create a story in this way. Okay. And the second one is try to study all the theory in a chronological order. Okay. Chronological means Harrod के बाद we all know कि solo पढ़ना होता है, तो this will give you a better idea. Like in the exam, there are you can say plenty of questions for the chronological thing. So always try to study in that manner. Okay. So now I have given you enough idea of the approach for the growth model. Now we will see each model one by one. Okay. So first is Harrod Domar Model. So this model is basically based on the experience of advanced economy, or you can say advanced capitalist economies are basically, you can say, using their assumption, and the model is basically built in order to give a better picture of the growth path on those capitalist economy. Okay. Now Harrod and Domar, they are basically, they gave different approaches, but the conclusion was similar. So we will see both the model one by one. First, we will look some assumption of the model. So assumption was same in both the model. So first is ki there should be full employment equilibrium. Full employment equilibrium of income. It means capital and labor should be fully employed. Second is there should be absence of government interference. Third is there is closed economy. Means there should be no trade like situation will happen. Fourth is average propensity to save will be equal to marginal propensity to save. Fifth is capital income ratio should be fixed. Fixed means K should be equal to lambda Y, where lambda should be constant. So if this is constant, then you can also write this as delta K upon delta Y. This will also be lambda. That is, incremental capital output ratio will also be fixed. Like it will be equal to some constant. Then we have no depreciation of capital. No depreciation of capital. Now, as I have already told you, if you are remembering the assumption of Harrod Domar, then you will easily got to know what will be its limitation and what will be the assumption for the next coming theory. So some sort of thing like full employment also being assumed by Solo, but this one is criticized the capital output ratio should not be constant. So in Solo, they were like the capital will be like capital output ratio will not be constant. They are like they have given the substitutability concept, like capital and labor must be substitutable to each other, and there will be depreciation of capital in the Solos one model. Okay, so we will see. Also, the price label will be constant. Price label will be fixed. Now we have seen the assumption. Now we will first see the Domar model. Domar model. So Domar gave two sides. First is supply side, also called as increase in productive capacity. First is increase in productive capacity. That is also called as supply side. And the second is increase in aggregate demand, also called as demand side. So this is defined as, like in algebraic form, this is defined as sigma, that is also called as incremental output upon capital, which is also called as delta Y upon I. Why? Because change in capital means investment. So that's why delta K is replaced by I. So if we will do some sort of manipulation, then this delta Y will be written as I into sigma. Okay. And if we will look upon demand side, this is simple Keynesian. That is aggregate demand, aggregate supply will be, sorry, this aggregate demand will be equal to consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure. So this is also C bar. This consumption expenditure can be written as in form of MPC, that is marginal propensity to consume, plus I. So if you will look upon delta Y upon delta I will be equal to 1 upon 1 minus C, and 1 minus C, if we will assume 1 minus C as alpha, then it will be written as 1 upon alpha. So this is the demand side and this is the supply side. And you know ki in order to achieve equilibrium, this demand side must be equal to supply side. So delta Y from here and delta Y from here. So both will be equalized. So I sigma will be equal to delta I upon alpha. So if you will do some sort of manipulation, then it can be written as delta I upon I equal to sigma alpha. So this is the equation of Domar model. And what does this signify? Or this is also called as steady state. So now I think you must be clear that I was saying that ultimately whichever the growth model you will be studying, one thing is clear that they will try to figure out the full employment growth path, or that is also called as steady state growth path. Okay. So in Domar model, steady state growth path is this. Now we will see Harrod model. The Harrod model. Now Harrod model basically the model gave three distinct type of growth. Okay. So three distinct type of growth. First is actual growth rate. Actual growth rate. It is also denoted as G. Okay. Actual growth rate is simply equal to average propensity to save upon C. And what is C? C is incremental capital output ratio. Or you can write it as also P delta S can be written, this average propensity to consume can be written as S upon Y. Or this incremental capital output ratio can be written as delta K upon delta Y. Understood? And this can be also written as S upon Y, and delta K, change in capital, is termed as investment. So it can be written as delta I upon delta Y. So if you will see, this can be written as, okay. So the thing which I am trying to give you a gist about is this will ultimately relate it to savings and investment. Okay. So this is the first, you can say, growth equation. So actual growth means this is the actual GDP growth which the economy experiences. Second is warranted growth rate. growth rate. And also here one condition is required, that is actual saving must be equal to actual investment. And actual means ex post. Ex post. Actual saving means ex post, or if there is desired, or you can say required, is called as ex ante. So we will see. Then we have warranted growth rate, that is also represented as GW. This is also called as full capacity growth. Full capacity growth rate. What does it mean, full capacity growth rate? So this is also called as entrepreneur equilibrium. Why? Because if this particular growth rate is achieved, then it will satisfy the entrepreneur. Satisfying entrepreneur means those profit takers will, like, their desired investment, or you can say their desired must be fulfilled. Means, like, if you are a particular entrepreneur and you are planning this much savings I will do in order to do this particular level of investment, and I will receive this much amount of profit. So your all planning, or you can say your all wish is getting fulfilled, and then the growth rate which is getting achieved, that is called as warranted growth rate. This is that's why it is called as full capacity. Means, and whatever entrepreneur is deciding to invest is fully utilized. Okay, so this is also called as entrepreneur equilibrium, and this actual growth rate is basically the growth rate which actually the economy achieved. Here, actual savings become equal to planned, and this is also called as desired, and this is also called as ex ante investment. Okay, so this is the condition required to achieve the warranted growth rate, and this formula is CR. And CR is required capital output ratio, or you can say desired capital output ratio. And this C is actual capital output. Now we have third growth equation, which is also called as natural growth rate, or this is also called as GN. This natural growth rate is also called as growth rate which is achieved as when economy has, you can say, achieved full employment. Full employment means it is particularly that rate of increase in output that is basically going on at full employment, which is determined by growing level of population, plus rate of technical progress. So in loose sense, it is called as full employment. Means all the growing, all the population got employed. Now using these three equations, Harrod gave a concept of knife edge equilibrium. Knife edge equilibrium. What does this mean? At knife edge equilibrium, you will be able to see that this actual growth rate will be equal to warranted growth rate, and this warranted growth rate will be equal to natural growth rate. So if this particular situation is achieved, then we will see, we can say that this particular equilibrium is knife edge equilibrium. Now, we will see why this particular equilibrium is called as knife edge. So we will see in a bit, like let's say if there is any disturbance created, let's say if G is greater than GW, means actual growth rate is greater than warranted growth rate. Okay, or we can also say that CR is greater than C, that is required investment is greater than actual investment. So, and this is also the demand side, and this is supply side. Why this is supply side? Because warranted growth rate is decided from the producer side. And this actual growth rate is basically the income, or you can say GDP of the economy. Okay. So if this situation is being created, it means this is a situation of excess demand. Okay. And also required investment is greater than actual investment, means this is also creating a excess demand situation. Means whatever is being required, or you can say whatever was the decision of the particular entrepreneur for investment is exceeding the actual investment. So this is also called as कि जितना जरूरत नहीं था उससे ज्यादा, it means कि excess of investment हो रहा है. So if excess of investment will occur, then it will create excess demand situation in the economy. Okay. So excess investment, so same Keynes का वो लगेगा यहाँ पे, like Keynes का ये था ना कि if investment will increase, aggregate demand will increase. So from that particular concept, कि investment is in excess quantity, so this will increase the demand, and then the economy will have this excess demand situation. And excess demand means price level will increase. It means there is situation of chronic or secular inflation, and there will be no turning back, means this particular inflation will be sustained. Means if, like, once this particular equilibrium disturbed, and we have disturbance in the sense that G is greater than GW, then we will get a situation of sustained inflation. That's why this particular equilibrium is called as knife edge. Why? Because we will see in solo that this sustained inflation will not happen. Why? Because once this inflation starts, then there is sort of concept of diminishing return. Like this investment, like initial investment will create some sort of increasing returns, but as this particular investment will achieve the maximum level of output, then the diminishing return will start. Diminishing return of investment will happen. But in Harrod, there is no diminishing return concept. That's why any disturbance from this equilibrium will cause sustained inflation, or in the opposite case, that is in case of G less than GW, we will have the chronic, you can say depression. Chronic depression. And one more thing, like this GW has one upper limit, means this GN is the upper limit. Why this is upper limit? Because GN is the full employment growth rate, means all the labor or capital, means all the factor of production are fully employed. So in that situation, we will achieve the maximum amount of growth. So any economy can achieve a maximum of growth which will be equal to GN. So if G is greater than GW, it implies that G will must be greater than Gn and GW will also be greater than Gn. Why? Because the upper limit is Gn. So if you are encountering, means if some question has given you, this is the disturbance which being created from the knife edge equilibrium, again the same answer will be there. See, chronic inflation will occur in the economy. And in the opposite sense, if G is less than GW, it means that G must be less than Gn and also GW must be less than Gn. Okay. So I will also draw a graph and you will get a better idea for this. The graph is like this. We have one as a actual growth rate. We have this is a GW, that is warranted growth rate, and we have 1 second. We have one more, that is natural growth rate. So here you can see GW is greater than G and also GW is greater than Gn. Sorry, here GW is greater than G. So what does it imply? This is the situation कि economy will reach chronic depression. Okay, so just remember these two things. When this particular disturbance will create, then economy will be in the situation कि this will create sustained inflation, and if opposite will occur, then there will be chronic or it is also can sustained depression. Means economy will not turn back. Means this equilibrium will never get achieved back. Okay, that's why this knife edge equilibrium is very delicate. That's why it is named also knife edge equilibrium. Knife means this is very delicate in sense कि if any disturbance will show slight change, it will not regain this particular, or you can say it will not recounter and re-attain this particular equilibrium. Okay, so we have completed Harrod model.